Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. This is the Monday Night Raw review from this week's Monday Night Raw, which has gone off the air 4 or 5 hours ago. The build to Survivor Series continues as the Bloodline and the OG Bloodline look for their retrospective fifth men, and both have the same idea of who they want. You can imagine the problems that's going to cause this week on Raw, which started with Damian Priest and Gunther really talking about the World Championship opportunity, which, Damian Priest has won again and is looking to have his rematch, so to speak, really, for the World Heavyweight Championship. Not sure if that is due to happen at Survivor Series or not, but Gunther and Damian are going to clash at some stage for the championship. I would imagine at this point that Gunther will retain a title. I don't think Damian Priest is going to win the championship back so quickly. With that being said, Damian and Gunther on a collision course at some point. In the very, very near future. And, as I said, the face off on Raw, really just getting into the fact that, if Gunther was going to talk about Damian Priest was apparently not there. He shows up and says, well, you're going to talk about me. We'll talk about me. Priest has basically said that everything Gunther could say before Gunther can already say it, really. And he also thinks that Gunther has lost his swagger a little bit in this, and he's gonna, well, if basically dared Gunther to take a shot at him, and if he did, he was gonna drop him on his ass, which then is interrupted by Ludwig Kaiser, uh, and he was getting on about Damian Priest as well, and he was going to basically going at Damian Priest for disrespecting Gunther. And then Gunther puts his hand over Kaiser's mic, whispers something in Gunther's ear, and Priest then decks Kaiser, clotheslines him over the top as Gunther slides out of the ring. It was a good opening segment. I feel like Priest, he was talking about the swagger of Gunther. I do feel that Priest had lost his. It kind of went a bit wayward with the whole Rhea Ripley situation, the injury. They was the Terror Twins. They split up as a group or as a duo, so to speak, focused on going their separate ways. He kind of dipped a little bit, but it's now got back, and potentially is Gunther losing the swag a bit for him? I'm not too sure. But what I would say is Ludwig Kaiser definitely has one of the most punchable faces in the WWE. And it always feels good with him getting his head knocked off, for want of a better phrase. But anyway, decent opening segment on Raw. Again, carrying on the build for Gunther and Priest at a later date for the World Heavyweight Championship. Kofi Kingston and Co was backstage, and he run into Pete Dunne or Butch, and it sets up a match for later on, which we will get into. And then it comes to Damage Control against Pure Fusion Collective, who, to be honest with you, we haven't actually seen a lot of recently in this at all. They've been quite, come and gone really for a little bit. They were started to build up a bit of momentum, then they started losing matches. And again, they did lose this match as well with Io Sky hitting the over the moonsault. Now, Io Sky has got a title opportunity herself down the line, so it made sense from that aspect of it. But the teams have really been sort of circle each other for months, so it did make sense for the match to happen. I'm not too sure about the finish though, and whether that was needed. At some point, Pure Fusion Collective does have to start winning matches, and that's the thing. The group was interesting. You had three people on there, Deville, Stark, and Baszler, all had value to that women's division. And, it group shouldn't, and this group really should be quite a force to be reckoned with in the women's division. But I do feel that it's not, they're not at all right now. And I'm not quite sure, where that if you keep losing, we always talked before about the momentum, and you've got to make people. If you really got to have invested interest in them, they need to be winning matches. And for me, didn't happen. And Pure Fusion Collective are in a very dangerous spot right now of going into obscurity. When you think of the United States Women's Championship that's coming out as well, and apparently there is not going to be the Intercontinental Championship. Apparently, it is only going to be the United States across both brands, and you can take that with what you will, but there is going to be a United States Women's Championship, and you know it's just a little bit, for me, it devalues them a bit now, having them to keep losing. But look, Damage Control did shine, and to be honest, Damage Control always do shine on Monday Night Raw. There's no doubt about it. Shayna Baszler, and this is the thing, right? Shayna Baszler in NXT was a killer, an absolute killer. She's been eating more pinfalls right now than Otis has meals, and again, it's just a devaluation. She's gone from a killer to a pussycat. You know, I just didn't enjoy it. Didn't enjoy that match. I didn't enjoy the finish. I don't enjoy the fact that Pure Fusion Collective are not necessarily being utilized correctly here on Monday Night Raw. Again, you guys can have your opinions, and you could agree or disagree with that narrative. But for me, they are not being utilized correctly, and they're in danger of going into obscurity. Let's talk a little bit about the Usos and Sami Zayn. They were on Raw. And they were looking for a fifth member. There's still a bit of dissension between Jimmy and Sammy. Sammy and Jay are now doing the handshake and whatnot. There are just decisions for a fifth member. They were looking up and down the roster, but Sammy has an idea of who he thinks could be the fifth member of their Survivor Series team. I don't think they're going to have a lot of people really wanting to be the fifth member, not because of who they're going against, but because of the job that the Bloodline done on the majority of the roster over the last few years. But Sammy has an idea, and they're going to let him run with said idea. We said earlier on that Kofi Kingston and Pete Dunne had a bit of a confrontation out the back, which led to this match. Now, the New Day, so Xavier Woods was with them. There have been their dissension in recent weeks, and they're teasing this split that may or may not happen. And yes, there was more dissension in this match between Woods and Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston was yelling at Xavier Woods for getting involved, which allowed Pete Dunne to pick up the victory in the match with the bitter end for the victory. Xavier Woods told Kofi Kingston, basically told him so at the end of the match as Kofi pushed Woods. I'll tell you what I would say about this. Pete Dunne and Kofi Kingston work very oddly well together. But to be honest with you, the match was just a placeholder for what has been going on between Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. That's the angle. The match is just there to happen. The New Day, to be honest with you, and I keep saying maybe splitting up the New Day, maybe not right, maybe correct, maybe too late. My opinion is it is too late. But what I would say is that this is the most interested and invested that I've been in the New Day in a long time. It could go either way. They could resolve their differences, which I think they should, to be honest with you, because again, I don't think that them splitting up is the right idea. But they could go down that route of splitting up, and that could harm probably more Woods than Kingston, I would have thought. But either way, the journey has been fun with the New Day, where it started to, everyone hated them and then they loved them. And, it's been great. Has been a great journey. What I would say was this is the first time that Kingston has gotten physical with Woods, or Kingston and Woods have got physical. It wasn't like a brawl or anything like that. But Kingston finally showed some fire in this. But I think what you've got to look at is actually Xavier Woods is right in everything he's saying, which is really kind of weird because we're all liking Kingston and we're all not liking Woods, but it's kind of like, Woods is right in all of this, which makes it even more interesting when you think about it. Look, we're going to go from that issue to another issue, and that other issue is Judgment Day. Now, Finn and Dom are having this spat, and Dom come very close to becoming the number one contender. And to be fair, he did win a match, which allows him, well, which Adam Pearce said would get him a shot at Gunther. When he beat Damian Priest a couple of weeks ago, Damian Priest then won the Fatal Four Way to become number one contender, which is all a bit confusing. But Dominic and Finn are butting heads now. Dominic sort of being a bit brash, was like, well, I was I've been closer to a championship than what you have been, the world championship, that is. And they got into an argument. It had to be split up, but dissension within Judgment Day now. And it's looking likely that this could apparently finally be coming to an end with both of the with this group. There's been one group we've added and lost some, and we're going to be looking like we're going to be losing some more. Perhaps the group is finished coming up. We'll have to wait and see in the near future on Raw. We will find out what happens in the future. Bronson Reed come out on Raw. He said Seth Rollins is a hell of a competitor. Reed is not a competitor. Reed is a monster. And last week, Reed took out Damian Priest and Sheamus. And if Rollins wants his revenge, Reed is in the ring right now. And of course, you don't have to ask Seth Rollins twice. Here he comes. But he did initially get swatted away like a fly. Rollins did manage to send Reed into the post. Rollins cleared off the commentary desk. Reed then booted him onto the desk, and he starts to climb the barricade to go through the table. And Rollins basically dives off the table, lands on Reed. Security was separating him. They're still going at it. The security guards gets taken out, and Adam Pearce finally comes out with more security and gets these two split up, which then leads to a bit of a backstage confrontation between him and Adam Pearce. And Adam Pearce said, look, you want your rematch, you got it. Well, not even a rematch. Seth beat Bronson over at Crown Jewel. But Adam Pearce was like, if you want this, you've got it. Next week, leave me alone. Adam Pearce walks away. Then on comes Sami Zayn. Interesting. And Sami Zayn is asking Seth Rollins if he wants to be the fifth man. He was talking about how it all went with Roman Reigns out the back, in the future and such what. And yeah, he was trying to get Rollins in there, but Seth Rollins basically said, you must be out of your mind. Seth was not going to be joining the fifth man of the original bloodline. He's ruled himself out as it stands as member of the original bloodline. He will not be joining Roman Reigns, getting back in with his breadwin former Shield teammate. And yeah, it's interesting to see what will happen with that. And will it happen in the future? Will it not happen in the future? We will have to wait and see. That's for sure. Now, at the back as well, I will say this. There was another confrontation at the back. This was Jimmy Uso. And Jimmy Uso was talking to Braun Breaker. There's another opportunity. Potentially, we go down that route. Braun Breaker's had history with Jay. Lots there to sort of decipher, and who's going to be that fifth man on the OG side, and who's going to be the fifth man on the bloodline side. You could argue there's room for Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Those two have been having a big feud on SmackDown over the last few weeks. Obviously, Kevin Owens giving a power driver to Randy Orton last week and running him out of SmackDown on a stretcher. So we've got that aspect as well. There is so much going on right now, and who's going to be this fifth man? It's going to be quite exciting. We'll find out who that is, maybe in the coming weeks on Raw or SmackDown. Now, The Miz and the final testament. The Karrion Kross wants The Miz tell him where the Wyatt Six are. And The Miz says he's done with it. He's taking a leave of absence. And Cross was like, "You're going nowhere." And if he says if the Miz was, he's going to break his legs if the Miz even tries. He blamed Miz's the Paul Ellering stuff on the Miz, and Karrion Cross demands answers from the Miz. They're in the ring now. They're about to really beat him on this and beat him up on this. And out comes the Wyatt Six. They surround the ring. They get into the ring. And just as they're about to go to blows, the Miz smacks Eric Rowan with a steel chair. The big brawl breaks out in the ring. And ultimately, the Wyatts are laid out at the end of it. The first time we've seen the Wyatts out as a team. The Miz and Karrion Cross hug outside as Uncle Howdy gets up on the ropes and starts laughing, which disturbed Karrion Cross for sure. Um, this week the WWE really did make the Final Testament look strong, and that's what they should be doing. They are a big group, and people, don't really care about them at the minute. But if we started to get more of the Final Testament looking strong, people would care. It's a frustration for me because, you know, the Final Testament for me is the men's version of the Pure Fusion Collective. They should be a force, but all they ever do is lose. And hopefully, this is the first week of things start to turn around for the Final Testament. Hopefully, also, this is the final week of, Pure Fusion Collective losing, and they'll pick up the victory next time they wrestle on Raw, perhaps. I don't know, but that's a frustration for me. You've got two good groups here, two groups that should really be running roughshod over WWE, and two that are doing nothing of the sort. So it'd be interesting, but they did lay out the Wyatt Six. Uncle Howdy did say get up and start laughing. So we'll have to see what happens there. Obviously, that feud is far, far from over. Spoke about Seth Rollins earlier on in the show. Seth Rollins was out the back walking by, and out comes the new bloodline. Solo Sikoa and Co. were basically trying to recruit Seth over to the new bloodline. Seth was like, you know what? I'm never gonna join forces with a wannabe Roman Reigns. So Rollins seemingly rules out joining the new bloodline, as well as ruled out joining the OG bloodline this week. So maybe Seth is out of the equation of the Survivor Series for both sides. Things can change, but as it stands right now, it was a big no from Seth Rollins on both sides. Women's World Tag Team action now. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Liv Morgan, and Raquel Rodriguez. It was a fun tag team match for me. Bianca and Jay did pick up the victory. It felt as if they were a bit pressed for time, moving a mile a minute to start. It was like something maybe had overrun earlier on. And if these superstars had more time, I feel the match would have come together. It was just a little bit there. The ending of the match felt as if it was a little bit overbooked. But at least Bier and Cargill won, and technically a clean win on that. But I am disappointed that the eight-way brawl didn't end with William Regal announcing War Games. So at the end of this, this was the main event of Raw. There was 8 women basically beating each other up at the end of this match. There was Nia Jax, Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, Naomi, Io Sky, Tiffany Stratton. I think I've got everything right there on that one. So there was 8 women brawling to pretty much end Raw. Regal should have come out and announced War Games. Will there be a women's War Games match though? Because that's where it looks like it's alluding to here. We're apparently going to War Games with the women, which I think is a great thing and a great idea. The only thing I say with this is it felt like it's a bit rushed. And I said about this final match being a bit rushed. And I do think that this may be just like, oh, shall we have a women's War Games match on it? Yes, on it. Who are we going to put in? I'll just put these guys in. That's how it felt for me. But look, the Raw overview for me, it was a mixed bag of hot segments and okay matches. They had a good interaction between Gunther and Damian. It built significant interest in their upcoming match. The match of the night was really that tag team women's match. Bianca and Jade are doing something for those tag team divisions that nobody has actually done before with the women's tag team divisions. And it actually makes them matter a bit, and perhaps they shouldn't have lost them to begin with. Who knows? And the bloodline turns tonight with them both trying to scramble to find a fifth member. For their respective teams. Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins were the two that were looked at tonight. Seth from both teams, flat no. Braun Breaker from the OG bloodline, which is going to be interesting. That's definitely what definitely what I think potentially could be. Braun Breaker siding with the OG bloodline could be an interesting one, considering his past with Jey Uso. But that was Raw this week, guys. Look, don't forget, this is the final review show of the week. Obviously, I'm going off on a well-deserved holiday, but do not stress. We will still have shows dropping for you. Interviews with Gideon Gray will drop. The Ignite Curtain Call free preview will drop, as well as PJ Black interview as well. And when I return, I will be rounding up everything that I have missed since I've been away. So do not despair. Stuff will still be dropping over the course of the next week, so you will not be left out at all. But until I return in a week's time, guys, please buckle down, stay safe, take care, and goodbye.